For that, I joined a research study. Was a part of that. Put me into a couple trial things, and I picked the no-name brand of Copaxone to start with that. 40 milliliters every 48 hours through injection. It's a subcutaneous, and I did that for about a year, more or less, until recently. Got my first 6 month MRI, clean, nothing new. Still had some activity in the lesion on my spinal cord, which in hand caused the symptoms to continue in my leg and lower extremities. Have improved greatly since the beginning of that. But moving on from that, my next MRI 6 months later showed a new lesion and activity in my prefrontal cortex. Very new lesion, high activity. So I'm going to be switching over to a new medication in the future. In the last couple months, I've had a slight increase of pain, fatigue, and depression. Mostly fatigue, and the pain is back pain, stiffness, coordination problems, slightly. Nothing necessarily too extreme, but would be explained by the new active lesion in my brain. But from that information, I wanted to go next to how my body, other than it not working fully, for the Copaxone for a treatment. So the first couple of months I took Copaxone, I forgot how to say it, but Copaxone, I believe. I did my injections. I had redness and swelling at the site, burning for maybe about a half an hour after injection, and itching for the next 24 hours after the injection. And then, mostly for the first couple months, I had fatigue, mostly just pretty bad fatigue. I had to take a nap like every day for the first couple months. But other than that, after the first couple months, fatigue went away and things greatly improved. The only thing that is unclear about fatigue is that not sure if it was connected to my active lesion or not, or relapse in that sense, which highly it could be connected to that. So take that with a grain of understanding of the difficulty about separating symptoms from medication versus disease activity. But for my non-aggressive MS, having one lesion is not good, even with treatment. So okay, we need to switch. But other than that, getting used to injections was pretty easy. Then moving on, just kind of dealing with the soreness with the first half an hour after injection. Not so bad. I think one of the more difficult things was having to take the medication with you when you have to take it out of exact time and having to keep it cool enough, especially in the summer where when it gets too hot, it could affect the medication and cause issues with that. So having to have an ice pack, but then you can't keep it too cold because then it will hurt when you inject it. So taking it out the night before or the morning before you take your injections, really helpful. Having a little bag like that one right in the back there for injection holding and supplies holding if you do have to go somewhere else to take it. And getting little tiny ice packs that you can put into the bag. The one that I have is like a lunchbox material on the inside to keep it cooler. As long as it's cool in the area that you keep the bag. But more or less, those were the effects that I experienced and the difficulty with it. But yes, and I think it's good to also know about the Copaxone that they do have a really good support team to get you the supplies that you need. There are people who reach out after you have started the medication to give you some supplies, a heating thing that you can put on your leg after injection or before or after injection, and then you also have an ice pack after injection or before an injection, numb the area so it's not painful. But more or less with that, there's also an auto injector that you can get for the no-name brand that makes it so that you can use that. I didn't end up using it very consistently because I found it was easier for me to control how quickly that I administered the injection comparatively to an auto injector, which takes about 10 seconds for it to fully inject the medication. And then they have good online resources for the Copaxone or the off-brand one. They also have an app that you can use to track your injections and the locations in the injection area, because you need to switch up the locations without having the same location for a certain period of time, so that you don't get necrosis in your skin, so that the tissue doesn't die, because that is one of the possible side effects of that. It would be evident looking at the injection site, and then if you kept doing it in the same place, and that same reaction of inflammation and redness could turn into something worse if you didn't move your sites. But there's many sites that you can do it. You can do it on your arm, you can do it on your back, your legs, lower back, your thighs, your stomach area. So it's pretty good, especially if you're doing it every 48 hours. You've got plenty of spaces to do it. If you're doing it every day, probably a little bit harder to track the location. So the app, very helpful. And that one, the app is made with the name brand in mind, which they aren't very different. But if you're looking for the app, it's through the Copaxone website area. And yes, couple of other things to add is that important to take the shots at the same time. And if you can't, take it as soon as possible, unless it's been 7 hours after you were supposed to take it, then you might be a little iffy. But you can always talk to your doctor about that. But yeah, so for the Copaxone, for me, it was a lot easier to deal with. But I haven't had any experience with any other medications at this point. But it wasn't so bad for me to deal with the side effects that only lasted for the first couple of months. So if you're non-aggressive or going to try Copaxone, I would recommend it, other than the rate of remission or whatever, reactivity is a little bit on the lower side. But again, the side effects are also a little bit on the lower side. And yes. If you have any questions, you can put them down in the comments section. I can try my best to answer them. Of course, I am no expert, and I'm probably going to add a couple of resources in the description to help people find stuff like the MS Society and some other resources that have been helpful for me. And hello everyone, I am going to be showing how I administer my Glatiramer Acetate, the no-name brand for Copaxone. So some people might, this is what I use for my ice pack, wrap it in like a washcloth or paper towel and then put it on the site area that you're going to do. I'm not going to use that today because I've gotten pretty used to the pain from the injection area. Sometimes if I move it to a location that I don't use very often, or an area that's a little bit more sensitive, that I would use this in that spot. After or before. And here we go. Alcohol wipe here, and I'm going to clean the injection site. I usually clean a little extra area, so that when I look at my app here, that I know exactly where it is. While this is drying, I will, a little information on this. I got a couple of these guys here. They're portable sharps containers. They've been really helpful when having to go and do injections somewhere else. If I'm visiting family, visiting someplace, take one of these with me. Can fill up a couple of my syringes in there. I have a bigger one over there, so I'm going to use that today, but I just wanted to show that. So for this medication, it comes in a glass container here with a stopper on the end, pre-filled syringe with 48 milliliters of the medication. I usually take it and I heat it up a little bit with my arm, or you can keep it in your hand, heat it up a little bit, but usually this is what I do. And then I have a bandage just in case, because sometimes you'll hit a little bit of a blood vessel and you get a little bit of blood, but usually you don't even have to worry about that. A couple of things to remember is that if too much leaks out, then you should let your doctor know when you're giving an injection. It shouldn't be more than like the end of your fingertip amount of stuff. Of course, I'm not a medical professional, so ask your doctor if you're having any of that kind of stuff, or any of the nurses that you're working with. But I usually let this sit for a little bit, so it's the same temperature as my body. These technically can be out for about a week if you can't get an ice pack, or you can't get into a refrigerator. Let's say you're going on vacation and that kind of stuff. As long as it doesn't go above like 75 degrees, then it's usually okay. Of course, again, ask your doctor, read your labels, but yes, I'm going to administer the medication up. Usually for mine, I have a little bit of excess that's in the syringe that drips out a tiny bit. I usually just put on the alcohol pad there, but if you don't let it drip off, it will hurt a little bit more because the material that's lining it is kind of alcohol based, so it will hurt when you inject it. go. I also try to relax the leg or your stomach or wherever you're putting it so it doesn't hurt as much, and squeeze the area surrounding it just a tiny bit so it's a little bit easier. And I usually let it sit in for a little bit, count for like 10 seconds to make sure it's all gotten in there. And then I put this immediately to my sharps container over there. Like right now, I have a little bit of burning, a little bit of itching after the fact, but usually it goes away within like a half an hour or even less than that. One thing I will say that I've noticed is that if you put a bandage on the location of the shot, it does hurt more because there's the swelling that's associated with the site. Sometimes there's a little bit of bruising, just a tiny bit, but mostly that's basically it. And then you can also use ice pack on it if you think it will feel better, or if it helps at all. But of course, make sure you're always wrapping your ice packs. And yeah, so that's basically all it is, and I do that. I was I do it on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, but you can do a mixture of days of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The 20 milliliter injections are every day. So, yeah, but that's basically me administering my medication for the Glatiramer Acetate, or also known as Copaxone. But that is basically it. And again, I'll try to answer questions or helpful information. I will try to have in the bottom links of these containers, my ice packs, the bag, and all of that jazz.